from Tucson to Bisbee to capture the first ever indisputable footage proving the existence of the legendary mythical creature known as the jackalope.
Meanwhile, let me pass on the good word about the new
Wonky Times.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on tight, folks. Hang on to your seats. Clutch those pearls if you can afford them. A recent sighting on the Loch Ness webcam has left the internet bubbling lately. Ooh. On the evening of September 23rd, just a couple days ago, an eagle-eyed observer, I'm not even going to try to pronounce their name, they spotted a monstrous black shape emerging from the depths of Loch Ness. We've got a floater here, people. The object, which is estimated to be around 25 feet long, moved with a slithering grace before disappearing beneath the waves. Was it Nessie? I mean, probably. A giant eel?
No way.
You can dive into the full story and decide for yourself at wonkytimes.com. Look for that article. Also, the video is on Wonky Times Instagram. Pretty cool. And to carry on the creature theme, we're talking cryptids in this episode. Specifically, the almighty jackalope. Ooh, that's that little rabbit with the antlers. I chatted with filmmaker, bicyclist, and adventurer Kirby Willow, who made the new documentary named Silly Rabbit. He and Chloe rode along the back roads from Tucson, Arizona to Bisbee, Arizona in search of the mystical jackalope. So, do they spot the horned bunny? Do the pokey antlers make an appearance in the film? You'll just have to watch. Sorry. But yeah, this film, it's not very long. It's maybe about 15 minutes. It's beautifully shot, informative. I mean, I even learned a thing or two while watching it, and it's very, very entertaining. So, without further ado, what's a do? What is that? A do? Anyways, here's my conversation with Kirby. Check it out. Well, first off, what all do you know about the jackalope, and why did you want to make a movie about it?
Yeah, I'll try not to get too carried away because I know more than any normal human being should know about the jackalope, probably. But effectively, I am from the west of the United States. I grew up in Colorado. I lived in Tucson, Arizona for a while, and I've explored a lot of Wyoming and Utah. And if you've been out here, you know that the jackalope is kind of, for the West and Southwest, is our favorite mythical creature.
Yeah, it's like the Bigfoot of, well, I mean, it's small, but I know what you mean. Go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting. But it's a really big part of the history of westward expansion. And actually it goes a lot further beyond that. There's jackalopes are throughout history, in Asia, Africa, and European folklore. You can see horned rabbits everywhere. But yeah, that's essentially, for someone who's not familiar, that's what a jackalope is. It's a horned rabbit. If you want to get really particular, it's actually a hare. And it doesn't have an antelope horn. It's typically depicted with deer horns. And there is a Central American culture, I forget the name, where they actually believe that the deer inherited horns from the horned hare. Oh, wow. And so that's kind of what a lot of the legends, and what I learned a lot in researching this film, I assumed it was a deeply American creature, which is true. But you find that it goes along a lot deeper than that.
It seems like it would be this big, like, Wild West folklore, story you would tell around a campfire, like the mighty jackalope. Is a hare bigger than a rabbit? Is that like what the difference with the hare and a rabbit
typically
is? Is that?
And oddly enough, there's actually believed to, I mean, some people believe this isn't as widely accepted, to have at one point been a saber-toothed jackalope. That was even larger and of course had saber-toothed fangs, and is now extinct. And I don't know if I go that far, but I think generally the jackalope is accepted to be about 30 to 40 pounds. So a lot larger than if you think of a rabbit.
Right. Because jackrabbits are pretty big in that region. So this would be bigger than a jackrabbit, I guess. Probably.
Yeah,
because
they'd
those
be
things are like
larger.
mini dogs. Those things
Yeah,
are
they'd
tiny.
be larger, and the key is that you will never see a jackalope without at least one horn. It's widely accepted that they only will shed one horn at a time. So that's how you know for sure if you're seeing a hare and it doesn't have any horns, you know that that's just a hare. But if you see a hare or a rabbit or whatever you want to call it, and it's got deer antlers or pronghorn horns, then you certainly just saw a jackalope.
Well, that was one of my. I was wondering the other day, like how there's the female deer, the doe, I guess they don't have antlers, and the males do. So, like, do all jackalopes have antlers? I was wondering, or do like female jackalopes not have that?
With jackalopes, the consensus is, and this makes it easy for us as people looking for them. They will just always have a horn.
Okay.
How people reached that conclusion, I'm not exactly sure, but that is within the community of people looking for the jackalope. If you ever take a picture of something without horns, then that was not a jackalope.
It's just the rabbit. Yeah.
Pretty universal. I think adolescence and like as a baby would be the one exception to that. But at that point, you also just couldn't tell, so it would never be accepted as a true sighting.
Yeah, so you never know. You could have seen a baby jackalope.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I was talking to you earlier, and I was saying how I was introduced to the jackalope back in the 90s because of America's Funniest Videos. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was funny because after you mentioned it, I did look it up, and it feels like a fever dream of something that maybe I tried to block out of my memory.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It was there.
And it felt weird watching it again yesterday when I brought it up. I was just like, wow, this passed as being something that was televised on TV,
Mm-hmm.
Probably because what's his name was doing the voice for it from Full House.
Well, I think too though that it's not a bad representation of how jackalopes are depicted, because throughout American history, like I said, like the history is bigger, but they're by far the most popular in the American West, and their existence in mythology has kind of always existed like hand in hand with being like a very serious, very beautiful, mythical creature, and also just being kind of one big joke. A lot of people trace the origins of the jackalope back to Douglas, Wyoming, in the 1800s, because I believe Douglas was the name of one of the brothers, the Herrick brothers, and they were the ones who first put a taxidermy jackalope up for display, and they fully admit that they were faking it, and they one day came home from a hunt. Where they had, they were taxidermists, and they had both deer antlers and I believe a hare or a rabbit. And they just kind of all threw them in a pile, and everything just landed coincidentally that it looked like the deer antlers were coming out of the hare's head. And they were like, that's hilarious. Mm-hmm. And they decided to make it into taxidermic jackalope that they displayed in a bar in Douglas, Wyoming. And that was like where the Western legend really took off in popularity, because it went from this mythical creature that no one had seen. It's almost like when some of those photos of Bigfoot actually, even though they weren't great and they themselves might have been faked photos, mm-hmm. but once someone had like a visual for their imagination to attach itself to, the popularity exploded.
Right.
And why it's funny and ties into that is that really started as a joke. And it's in the West, if you go to like some Western bar, it's a very kitschy thing to see. And they're usually in the silliest bars to see a stuffed jackalope on the wall. And what's tricky about it is every time I see it, I'm like, there's no way that's a real jackalope, because I know this story, Yeah. And I think that's what's interesting about the jackalope as a creature, and like actually believing that it's out there, is you have like two things happening at once, where there's this deep worldwide history of people witnessing horned rabbits that's very legitimate, and then there are these jokes that I also love, if we're being honest, and there's a lot of people that just openly fake it at the same time. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to hold both of those things and appreciate both of those things. If you want to be a fan of the jackalope, you have to hold the spiritual reverence for the actual myth, and then the kitschy joke that the taxidermic jackalope has become in history.
And also, like, a lot of times if they want to whoever they are, like say they're trying to hide that there are jackalopes in the world, they will bring in humor to it and kind of like, I mean, Bigfoot's another one. Anyways, maybe it's a distraction. Maybe they don't want us to know that the jackalope is really out there.
I think that's certainly part of it. I also think that that's just kind of part of the cryptid mythology in general, and you have to be willing to have a sense of humor about it. I mean, we did in our film. We knew how like stupid and foolish it was to a degree, and that's part of it, to be like, we're going to be the ones who finally find the scientific proof after hundreds of years. And you have to be willing to say, hey, this is serious. I actually do believe that this is a beautiful, beautiful creature, and its history is really special. And also, this is hilarious that we are looking for this thing. And it's funny that people make all these fakes and make all these spoofs as well. I think if you were like dead serious and gung-ho about like, hey, this is serious, like don't joke around, which some people are, then I don't think you're going to have a good time in the community. It's similar to Sasquatch, although that one's even bigger and sillier, in my opinion. That community came from the popularity. But you got to have a sense of humor about it. I mean, you're trying to find something that most scientists have deemed is not worth looking for anymore.
Let's say you found the jackalope. Would you report it to the authorities or keep it to yourself, or would you take photos? Would you kind of like protect its legacy of staying hidden?
Yeah. So I don't really
any kind of cryptid thing, not just jackalopes. Yep.
Yeah. One thing that I think as we went further on in the journey, so it was, the film depicts a 6-day bike ride across southern Arizona, as you mentioned. And so we had a lot of time to like kind of think and really sit in what we were doing. And I think where we almost got towards the end was a little bit of letting go of even the concept of the proof for the mission, and realizing that maybe wasn't the most important part. Like we got to a point where legitimately I was like, I don't know if I want to. I think the ideal would have been like to see it and have a personal experience with the creature yourself, but never have that burden of like maybe the camera doesn't function, or like how people will see a ghost and the camera can't pick it up, or vice versa, of just like, I would love, and we were thinking about this, like our mission, this is what we were saying, we got to a point where we would love to see one, but it almost was like, maybe this isn't something that people should really prove the existence of. Like, it's been so long for a reason. This creature has eluded this proof for so long for a reason. And it's almost like, are you going to ruin the myth? Are you going to, like you said, kind of. Right. And so I think, frankly, like, that's just a tough call in general. It's not, there's not a simple answer. It's just
I ask you because I don't know what I would do, I don't know, like, because I say so many strange things to friends and family, and they believe like half the things I say. So if I were to finally see something and tell them without some kind of proof, no one would believe me, so I don't know, like maybe I would just show a select few, but word gets around, I guess. I don't know.
Wonky Times will be right back after this short commercial break.
For the women who refuse to lead on anyone else's terms, this is for you. You climbed the ladder, hit the milestones, and done everything right, and yet something still feels off. Success should not cost you your well-being, your joy, or your integrity. That's why I created Powerhouses with Purpose. Here, we don't just talk about values, we lead with them. If you're ready to break free from cycles of burnout, lead with clarity, confidence, and purpose, and build a legacy that actually feels like yours, welcome home.
Schedule a call with Sam at powerhouseswithpurpose.com.
I like to do it on the couch.
I like to do it with my husband.
Heck, sometimes I do it when no one's looking. Anywhere works for me. Introducing the Wonky Times Hotline. It's so much fun. You can do it anywhere.
No way.
Yes, anywhere. Your couch, your car, your backyard. Call us, leave a voicemail, and maybe you'll hear your message on the next podcast episode. Dial 615-669-8692 8240. Strange stories, spooky tales, and all things wonky just waiting for your voice. Again, that's 615-669-8240. Don't wait, get wonky today. Like you mentioned, you guys were cycling in this movie. You guys chose to go by bicycle. How was that journey? Because Arizona can be pretty hot.
Yeah, so we decided to ride, and the ecosystem we were riding through is the Sonoran Desert. So it's in Arizona, and it also is like a huge part of Mexico. And in the winter, it is kind of a high desert. So the days are really quite nice, but the nights are just absolutely freezing. But we chose to do it through the desert around this time of year, partially because riding through the desert in the summer would have been a nightmare, and we wanted to make it a community event of starting from our homes in Tucson, as well as knowing that there are jackalope sightings. But also in the winter, a lot of the creatures that live in the mountains, it's a very mountainous desert, will migrate down towards the valleys. Javelinas, deer, all sorts of like the mammals that live in the Sonoran Desert will migrate into the valleys and into the desert during the winter when the mountains get so cold. And so we figured that would be perfect timing.
Yeah, to spot one of these.
Yeah. We also elected to do the trip by bike, partially because it's something that we love to do. We're capable of doing as well. But partially when I was thinking about like why jackalope sightings have decreased since the times of westward expansion. If you think about the people who have seen jackalopes and have documented it the most, it is like the pioneers and indigenous folks of Western America. And typically, I mean, they just some of their travels may have been done by railroad, but they certainly weren't driving cars.
Right.
And now when we drive through the Sonoran Desert, it's very dispersed outside of Phoenix and Tucson. So people are just on freeways and they're going 80 miles an hour. And to me, when I started thinking about that, I was like, of course the sightings have gone down. I mean, you're going to see a camouflage rabbit, and that a lot of people say even has mythical powers, which we can talk more about if you want to. But like, of course, this creature is not going to be spotted as much.
Right.
And it also coincided with why we love cycling, is because it allows you to move. We started calling it wild speed, right? That before cars, people would move at a more wild speed. Whereas now that we have these vehicles, we're moving at very unnatural speeds that kind of remove us from our environments. But if someone was moving foot travel through an environment or horseback, they'd be moving at a natural and wild speed that other critters indigenous to that ecosystem would move at. And so you're just more connected with the environment. And in my opinion, of course, more likely to, I can tell you for a fact, to observe creatures and mythical creatures that exist in those environments. So we thought, well, we're not cowboys, we don't have horses, but we do have bikes and we know how to ride them, and we can put some camping gear and camera gear on them. So that's probably the closest thing we could get to resembling the lifestyle of those who were spotting the jackalope so frequently back in the day.
It's interesting to think like that again, because, we are always in such a hurry nowadays, we don't notice things. There's probably, UFOs zipping over our houses all the time. Just how often do we go outside to, observe that? And, same thing with Bigfoot and chupacabras is another legend out there in the Southwest. So, but what kind of, you mentioned they have some kind of superpowers. What do you know?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of, this is where things start to drift, into the more, legend category. And so not everyone in the community or everyone that believes in jackalopes believes in all of these things, but some of them come up a lot more throughout history. And so we kind of decided as we gleaned through them to be like, all right, what's coming up a lot? And maybe we should investigate that. So some of the fun ones are, like I said, the main one is that jackalopes will always, male or female, have at least one horn. They only shed one horn at a time. But then some of the more fun ones, one that's really widely accepted revolves around the jackalope's vocal abilities. And this would actually indicate why they're so hard to track in part. which is that jackalopes have a vocal bouncing capability where they can use their ecosystem to kind of bounce their voice and their call off of mountains or canyon walls. And this makes it so it sounds like they're in a different location than they actually are. It's a defensive capability that they have, and that's very widely accepted. A less widely accepted variation of this is that they can also mimic human voice. And one way to lure them out is to actually sing a campfire song. A lot of people believe that you can kind of lure a jackalope into joining along in a campfire song.
I saw you guys did that in the film. Do you think it was the song choice, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think we tried to do some sort of song that felt classic to us. Now, it wasn't nearly classic enough to be a Western song, but we didn't know any of those off the top of our head. So I would like to imagine that the jackalope has taste, though, and so I think it's important to sing a good song that people might enjoy singing along.
Maybe try some Creed or Nickelback or something.
Yeah, that was our next one. Can You Take Me Higher was actually where we were going to go next. But that was actually probably our most successful attempt at contacting the jackalope. Yeah. And I was surprised because I personally thought that was ridiculous, that a jackalope could do that. Additionally, another way to, on the lines of luring them, is they're known to enjoy the taste of whiskey, particularly whiskey with a little bit of milk in it. So if you leave, it's told that if you leave a little whiskey, especially with a little bit of milk in it, outside your tent at night, a jackalope will come and you'll kind of poke your head out in the morning, and the tin will be empty.
They almost also, like leaving cookies for like Santa Claus or.
A lot of people like to discuss that they move much faster than normal. I've heard tell of up to 90 miles an hour.
Oh wow.
That seems a bit exaggerated to me. I wonder if that came from frustration of people who were on the tail of a jackalope and lost it. So they maybe exaggerated it, but they're known to be much faster than the typical hare or rabbit. And I think that's pretty safe to say that that's true. To what extent is the question. I think the reason people initially came up with 90 miles an hour is that a hare can move up to 30 and a deer can move up to 60. So they said, well, if it's the combination of the two, then it must move at 90.
Right. And they may have made this decision back before cars could drive 90. So they didn't even know like how fast 90 miles per hour is, you know.
But that to me sounds more like an excuse than a scientific fact about them. It's just nice and convenient to be like, oh, well, of course we had it, but we couldn't keep up because
I would have caught them
to 90 miles an hour. I don't know. That's just speculation.
Yeah. And maybe that's why we don't see them, you know, because they hear us coming from far away and they just take off and go the opposite direction.
And then I think the silliest one that it could absolutely be true, but it just seems so wild to me. But it is widely accepted that jackalopes only ever mate during thunderstorms.
Okay. Is it to like? I'll get your opinion first.
I don't know if it's a defensive. A lot of habits of these creatures you can typically like dial down to it's either defensive or it allows them to find food more easily. In this case, I could see it being defensive. While mating, they're a little bit more vulnerable, and typically other predators and creatures aren't willing to go out during thunderstorms.
Right. That makes sense. Are they shy?
That would be
are they trying to hide what they're doing in a thunderstorm? Or maybe it's romantic.
Yeah, I mean, certainly
we've all seen the movies where it starts to rain and the Spider-Man dangles upside down and kisses Mary Jane, kind of a thing.
Very, very Notebook of the jackalope.
Well, that's cool.
So yeah, that's certainly true. And then the other, and this is more of a generalized ability. And this is trackable through not only the West, but a lot of myths about horned rabbits, is that they have varying degrees of healing capabilities. This is more closely associated with, the spiritual elements of the jackalope. But there's a degree of reverence that people had in that they may also have healing properties, not necessarily if hunted, but, if they come across a weary traveler in need. There are some legends and tales of the jackalope lending some sort of mystical aid to that traveler.
It's got to be in the antlers, if that's like what's setting them apart from other
think
rabbits,
so.
like maybe
I think so.
This is fun. It's nice to know I have someone to talk to you about jackalopes with, because not everyone's on board. And, over here, I live in Tennessee and they have a jackalope brewing. So I'm wondering do they have their own tale of the jackalope in this region? Are there different types of jackalopes? It snows over here, or do they turn white?
Yeah, I would think so. I would think that, like any other creature, especially when you talk about, there's tales of the jackalope being depicted from Persia. And like I said, a lot of Asian, African, and European folklore. I would have to imagine that there's a great deal of diversity for those different ecosystems.
That just proves that it's not just someone in the U.S. making up a tale. If it's in all these other cultures, just like the Bigfoot is. Like Australia, they call the Bigfoot Yowie. There's the Yeti up in the ice and the snow and stuff. So I believe it. I think there's a jackalope.
And I think what I found is through doing this process and making this film as well, the community response has been, I don't think we're as strange as maybe it feels like we are sometimes. I think there's a lot of people who believe, and for whatever reason, maybe they want to believe, maybe they have stories of their own, which I've heard as well. But I think there's a lot of people that there's a community of people for sure that are like-minded like us. And regardless of why it is, we all kind of hold on to this hope that, this beautiful, historic and spiritual, mystical creature is out there,
Do you think it would be like, if you were to catch one, do you think you could domesticate it and teach it not to be violent or anything like that, or be nice to others?
I personally, going back to your question earlier, I just would never attempt to catch one. That's where I would definitely certainly draw the line. They're not meant to be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought, like, if I were to catch a coyote, could I turn that into a house dog, some kind of house pet?
There's only one way to find out, I feel.
Yeah. Well, if I ever catch a jackalope, I'll let you know. But
yeah, I'll come liberate it from your captivity.
I have some random quick fire questions for you here. The movie is called Silly Rabbit. I immediately thought of Trix. Do you believe that Trix is only for kids, or do you think anyone should be able to eat Trix?
Yeah, they certainly are clear that it's for kids, but I think anyone should have the God-given right to eat Trix.
Have you had Trix as an adult yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I was going to ask, if you haven't, maybe there's something strange that happens to you, when you eat Trix.
No, I think if we want to talk about hoaxes, that Trix is for kids tagline, that's the biggest hoax that I think Americans face today.
Did you ever have one of those lucky rabbit's foot keychains?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen them.
Do you think, you mentioned that the jackalope sheds its antlers. Do you think it sheds its feet? And then that's like a cover up. The government's taking these feet and dyeing them green and blue and giving them to kids.
No, I don't think that there's no evidence that the jackalope sheds its feet. Simply its antlers. I think a lot of people have some deer antlers that they have no idea are actually jackalope antlers and could be scientific breakthroughs if ever turned into the right people.
That's true. Like if you do a DNA test on these antlers, you might see that it's, hair.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's absolutely exists in a lot of collections out there that people just have no idea of.
That's your next movie. You guys should travel the country, go to hunters' homes and
Yeah, I'd certainly have to find a way to make antler samples feel a little bit more entertaining and exciting. But I suppose if we found the proof, then that would be all you need.
Right. Who do you think would win in a fight, Jackalope or Sasquatch? Just because I was reading online and I heard that in some cultures they said that the jackalope could be kind of violent if it meets a human.
Yeah. I don't. If it was just a straight up cage match, I think I'm going Bigfoot just for the pure size advantage. But if we're talking the natural environment, like they're in a neutral ecosystem, I actually want to give it, I think the mystical abilities and properties, I think the jackalope could certainly out-trick Bigfoot in that environment. And I want to go with the underdog. I'm saying jackalope.
Before we started talking, I was going for Sasquatch, but I've learned that they can run really fast. It could just leave the fight if it wanted to.
And if we're talking saber-toothed jackalope.
Yeah, I didn't know about this. Yeah.
Then it's a no-brainer.
So where can people watch your movie?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place is going to be on YouTube. we did one premiere in Tucson, but the physical premiere tour of One Stop is over. So the best place is just going to be to watch it on YouTube. You can obviously go to that link or just look up Silly Rabbit. It's posted under the channel of Could Be Media, which is the media business that I run as well. So yeah, go check it out on YouTube. It's about it's under 20 minutes. So it's just a really fun watch. If you're into jackalopes or you like bike packing or cycling, or you just love Southern Arizona and the Sonoran Desert, I think it's got a good mix of all three. So, and I just want to leave people with how we kind of felt at the end of this journey, which is that people should go on more dumb adventures. And if you have a stupid idea that you think you'll probably fail at, but it would be a good time probably failing at, you should just go do it. Because one thing I love about the communities of people who are looking for these creatures and looking for proof of things that haven't been proven yet is you got to be willing to fail to do that. And I think when you're really willing to make a fool out of yourself, that's when you have the most profound and enjoyable experiences. So yeah, if you think that you can be the person to finally prove the existence of a jackalope, Sasquatch, or whatever other cryptid is on your heart, just go 100% after it. I can promise you, no matter the outcome, you won't regret it.
And just think about how much fun your life is, like you have this belief and you want to find it, and then you spend so much time looking for something and or talking about it, and it adds more character to your life, I think, especially if you're doing it in the way you guys did it on bicycle, Ditch the cars, get a bike.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Just move more slowly throughout the environments you go through too.
Yep.
Look around, take things in. You don't even have to be searching for some sort of creature. You could just spend a little bit more time observing. That's the other takeaway. It's just so worthwhile, and we have a lot of cheat codes to allowing us to skip just existing in the world these days. And I think it's underrated. Existing in the world is underrated. And you can quote me on that.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Wonky Times. Thanks for wandering down the weird and wonky avenues with me. And remember, stay curious, question the ordinary, and if you see something strange in your backyard, email us at getwonky@wonkytimes.com. Adios!